Welcome to Ascension of the Chessmen, diving into the esoteric, occult, spiritual, and conspiratorial aspects of life, focused on solutions to the problems we face in our everyday lives. Let us ascend above all differences. Let us be the light in darkness, a breath of fresh air to those who can hardly breathe, and together awaken into greatness. This is Ascension of the Chessmen with your host, Andre Mytty.
Welcome to the Ascension of the Chessmen podcast. I am your host, Andre Mytty. Today's guest is a father, a medical doctor, natural law student and teacher, former master mason and love monger, and all around awesome dude. Ladies and gentlemen, hobbits and fairies, give a warm welcome to Chad Hargrove.
Hey, what's up, Andre? Thanks a lot for having me on, man. I've been excited about this since you reached out to me about a month ago. And,
man.
Looking forward to talking with you.
Well, thanks for coming on, brother. Happy to have you. I guess what prompted you to start spreading the word on forgiveness?
Well, it's a pretty long story, but I'll try to keep it short. I had a pretty average upbringing, and graduated high school in 2004. Went on to do 4 years of biology and chemistry studies. Got my bachelor's, and then did 5 years of medical school, and graduated 2013. And at that time I was married for only about a year, and I had a daughter who was about 18 months old. I was in my first week of pediatrics residency, which is where, residency is notoriously the most difficult and challenging time of any doctor's career. And
Right.
I was learning to take care of patients and take, what we call ownership of our patients, and really, do every aspect of advocating for them and trying to make the right decisions for them. Working like 110 hours a week, and this was in Springfield, Illinois. So my home is near Cincinnati, Ohio. And my first week of pediatrics, I got a call from my then wife, who basically told me that, for her own reasons, she was divorcing me, and she was going to keep my daughter there in Indiana with her, which was about a 5-hour drive. And
Wow.
this is really like the beginning of what many term as gnosis, Gnosis. I'm sure you've heard of it and are familiar with it.
Yep.
But my forgiveness didn't come from any book or any teachers or any preachers or anything like that. My forgiveness came from direct gnosis, because when that divorce happened, and my lawyers, my friends, my family, her lawyers, the court, everybody basically told me, just give up. There's no chance you're going to have custody of your daughter, and it was just devastating. I was absolutely devastated. I was in the deepest throes of depression that one can find themselves in, because my daughter's obviously my whole world. And I spent about a year and a half, maybe a year, holding on to so much hatred and anger and resentment, and it was absolute poison. And I was, calling my ex-wife every chance I could to make her life hell. I wanted her to hurt like I was hurting. And, and in the process, I was hurting myself, and I was really hurting her. And worst of all, I was hurting my daughter. She was seeing and more importantly, she was feeling the pain her mom was going through at my hands. You know what I mean? I couldn't undo the decision that she made to divorce me.
They always say hurt people, man.
Absolutely. And I was devastated, and I just wanted not necessarily everyone else, but her particularly to hurt like me. And in the throes of despair like that, there was just basically one instant, like some might call it a download, some might call it an epiphany or an awakening or whatever. There's a million words for a mystical experience where you just get hit with this universal truth. It's a moment of divine truth where I just was told, or I just heard in my mind, you forgive. You can stop all of this. You can stop all this hurt, and you can improve things, and you can make things better. And when I truly offered the energy of forgiveness to my ex-wife and understood that, the reasons for her, doing those things, as in our relationship and to me, were things that I didn't necessarily understand or have to understand, but to be able to forgive her and then try to work with her, it healed everything. It healed my relationship with myself, and it healed my relationship with her and my daughter. And we've been happily co-parenting, for almost, going on 9 years now since that happened. My daughter was almost 2 when it happened, and she'll be 10 in December. So going on, about 8 years now. We've been happily co-parenting and getting along great. And after that, I struggled with, anxiety, depression, a little bit of panic disorder throughout my life. And I started realizing that when I applied that lesson of forgiveness to every single negative part of my life and every single piece of darkness within me and every single experience that was not contributing joy and gratitude to my life, that I was able to heal so much and come off of antidepressants and come off of anxiety medication. And, I've been off of all those things for, since that time, for about 8 years now. And I really have. Thank you so much. And it's just, it was my own form of cognitive behavioral therapy. It was my own form of undoing the pain and discovering what true alchemy was, because it's such a potent way to turn your trauma into treasure, to turn your pain into a teacher.
That's so beautiful, man.
So
beautiful.
Thank you. And so that's where that's when I said, no matter what I'm doing in life for livelihood or for, income or for So yeah, I forget exactly where I was at, but I, applied that to all these places in my life and was able to turn things around. Can you remember the last thing I said before that?
Let me think.
I was going on heavy. Oh, so yeah.
Yeah.
Not being a master, I still fuck up, and I make mistakes every day, and I still have to work on forgiving myself and others. And I haven't mastered the key, and I made the choice to decide, no matter what I'm doing in life, that I can be a teacher of that and show everyone else that they're holding the same key, that they all have that tool at their disposal to improve their state of mind and to increase their mental and emotional freedom through practices of forgiveness.
That is so beautiful, man. So much to pick apart there. It just goes back to once we heal ourselves, the more healing we do, it just it's like a ripple effect, and it causes healing all around us, because we become a reflection others want to see in themselves, and they start to realize they can do this too. I can forgive myself too. I see how much it's done for him, and I can implement those same things in my life. And, I can now listen to him because he's a living example of what he's preaching to me, and it all goes back to, just being in alignment with who we were meant to be and just remembering who we are,
Yeah.
Because it's almost like we're never learning new things. It's I always say we're just remembering what we forgot, in a sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That's 100% the way I feel. I always, I'm always sure to remind people that I'm not necessarily teaching them anything. I'm just holding up a mirror
100%.
And trying to be a reminder of the tools that they already have, of what they already know.
Yep.
There's nobody in the universe doesn't know that deep down that forgiveness sets them free, and it's going to help, that it does help. Everyone's had an experience where they forgave somebody, or they struggled to forgive somebody, and it caused them great suffering. And most of us still do have that, even well along the path. So, absolutely. Just remembering what we already know, but we forgot what remembering what is in our heart, the truth written on our heart that we've built up layers and layers of wounds and conditioning over top of that keep us from remembering. The
Oh
scar
yeah. Like, because all that resentment and anger we hold on to, that just makes us bitter and hate ourselves. When, like, we think we're hating someone else, but internally we're just hating ourselves, and we're projecting it onto others. It's like, yeah, it does come back to forgiveness. And once you can forgive others and forgive yourself, you can love yourself and you can love others. Like, it's such a balancing act, it's all tied together. And I just love how you put that, man. That was a beautiful introduction, to say the least. So I guess just a quick overview of what forgiveness is not and what forgiveness is, to you, by definition.
These are I have like a a list of that covers each of those things that I like to hit on in my workshops. I think they're really important takeaway points. Like so nobody hates the word forgiveness more than the human ego. The last thing on earth we want to do is let go and be able to heal from the pain, that our ego wants to do, is let go of and heal from the pain that we've experienced, and it becomes part of our identity. So we have all these negative associations, or sometimes we have these associations with the word forgiveness, where we think that it's just apathy. If I forgive someone, it means I don't care. I don't really truly care about whatever myself or others, or about people doing bad things in the world. And it's absolutely not apathy. It's not complacency. It's not, forgiveness is not accepting where you're at. Say I have to forgive myself for losing my patience and raising my voice to my partner or my daughter or my friend. It's not saying I forgive myself for that and I'm not going to do anything about it. And we'll get into this later when we talk about moral accountability. So it's not complacency. Forgiveness is not endorsing the behavior. If somebody slaps me across the face unprovoked, or even if it's provoked, I'm not physically attacking them. If somebody punches me in the face and I forgive that person, well, I still don't condone or endorse the violence against peaceful people. I still don't accept that action or that behavior. Right. But I can forgive that wounded person, that unhealed person, or that person who's suffering. So it's not the condoning or endorsement of immoral behaviors.
100%.
And one of the most one of the most important things, and I think where you really experience the most power in what you're able to do with forgiveness does not require the offending party to be sorry. And forgiveness does not require the person who did something bad to you to even know they did something wrong or perceive they did something wrong. Now, I will distinguish that from true reconciliation and rectification. Truly rectifying a situation does take mutual exchange and expression of remorse and this and that. But if I have to have the requirement that someone is sorry for what they did in order for me to forgive them, well, what if someone hurts me and then they die the next day? Or what if somebody hurts me and I never see them again or never talk to them again? That's placing a limitation on my ability to forgive. I was sexually molested by an older teenager in my neighborhood when I was a child. I was about 5 or 6 years old. I don't remember a whole lot about it. I just remember some confusion about it. And I don't know if I think it happened more than once, but I don't really know. I'm still kind of unpacking all that.
Right.
But I've never seen that person since then. I have no idea if they know they did anything wrong. I have no idea if they're remorseful or if they're sorry or if they deserve my forgiveness. But I deserve to give them my forgiveness.
Right.
Forgiveness is not for them.
Exactly.
Forgiveness, if they benefit from it, that's fantastic. I want them to heal from what caused them to do that, but it doesn't require them to be sorry. And that's where you can really experience some tremendous power and really find out how powerful you are is when you forgive someone who doesn't give a damn and they're not sorry for what they did.
Oh yeah, man. Like that is such a hard lesson to learn in life, is like you can forgive someone without them caring if you forgive them,
Right,
or
right.
caring that they ever did anything to you, let alone acknowledge they did anything harmful to you.
Exactly.
And it's so freeing. Like I can't explain it, dude, because I had the same realization. Like working with plant medicine, like brought that out in me, and like just, and it wasn't like during the ceremony, you're wrapped up in so many so much is coming at you all at once.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it's like the next day and the days that fall and the weeks that fall and the months that fall, like you're unpacking all that, man. And that's when all those you know um emotions you suppress for so many years all come to the surface. And it's like, what do I do with this, and that's when forgiveness comes into play, and self-love, so you can be that love you want to see in the world and share that love with others. Because to be able to do that, you have to forgive. Like that's the building block, that's the foundation for it all.
Yeah.
All this resonates so much, man. I'm just nodding my head in agreement.
Yeah, man. Well, I think it's like I said, I to the best of my knowledge, this is a truth that exists.
Wait. Can you say that again for the
And it's
listeners? Sorry, you were
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah, no
cutting
problem.
out.
No problem. Yeah. We still got this lightning storm going on around here. Yeah.
You're good.
So,
You're good.
to the best of my knowledge, this is a universal cosmic truth that is accessible to sentient beings. Beings with the capacity for holistic intelligence and true understanding of morality, and that when you say it resonates with you so much and you're nodding in agreement, like I said, I can't verify or validate any further than I have that it's a universal truth and that the truth exists in all of us, and we all deeply understand this. And we're in a rat race every day, and we just fall out of touch with these profound understandings. And it's so simple, not necessarily easy, but the truth is simple, and it takes practice and work to apply in our lives, but it is a simple truth. And
Right. And it's not like you just like realize you can forgive and you need to forgive and you must forgive and then it's over with. Like it is a continual process. Like we're continually recycling these lessons, until we learn them. And it's like, the work is never done. That's always said, but it's so true. Like the work always continues. Like you never reach the end of the road. Like the road always continues. Like you gotta keep up the work. It's not like, oh, I'm done now. Like everything's all good. Like, no, like the lessons continue and you got to continue to be that, all that you preach. And that's what keeps you in check for sure. Like just to keep it going continuously and stay in your center and, just alignment for sure.
Absolutely. And when you've healed this layer of a certain trauma, or healed this layer, or forgiven this layer of a certain self-doubt or self-loathing that you have, or every time you forgive a layer, a lot of times another layer comes up, or you feel like you've forgiven this thing or that thing, and then further down the road it pops up again, and you realize maybe there was another aspect or some deeper forgiveness, or you didn't offer it the true energy of forgiveness, and it comes back up. So it is like a spiral staircase. It's like ever ascending, higher levels. And when we well, I'll jump into what forgiveness is now. I just gave the apophatic approach, the coming to understand what something is by eliminating what it's not. And we'll talk a little bit about the affirmatives of what it is. Like you already said, it's self-love. It's true self-respect. I'm sure you're familiar with are you familiar with Mark Passio's work?
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
So yeah, a lot of his he gets into the etymology of a lot of the words. Respect means to look again, means again, and then spectere means to look. So self-respect is self-examination. It allows you to detach from the emotional cycle of a trauma and lets you zoom out and look at it more objectively, so that that painful experience can be a better teacher to you, and you can take in the lessons better than when you're caught in an emotional cycle of hatred or loathing about it. It is shadow work. It's
Oh yeah.
it's the art of mental and emotional transmutation. It's working with the shadow material and making it conscious. It's a means for us to stop running from our shadow and to turn towards our shadow and say, I'm not scared of you anymore. I want to be friends with you, and I want you to teach me about myself.
Yep. No more
Forgiveness
running.
allows us to do that. Yeah,
No more running
forgiveness
away.
allows us to do that objective. Yeah, 100%. No more running. Exactly. It's also inner child work. When you go into a meditative state or you go into a contemplative state and you reflect on, sometimes I'll close my eyes and I'll just say, what hurt me when I was a child? I'll ask myself, what hurt? What felt bad? What was painful as a child? And I'll go back and I'll forgive those things, I'll learn from them. I'll learn so much more from them than when I hated those things and I couldn't bear to look at them. So forgiveness is a tremendous tool for mental and emotional freedom in that respect. And I think most importantly, and what the ego never wants to hear, is that forgiveness is a choice, a free will choice. And you can go 10, 30, 50, 70 years holding on to something, and holding the poison of resentment and anger in your heart, and then you finally make that leap of faith and actually offer the true energy of forgiveness, and you look back at it and say, God damn, the whole time it was a choice. The whole time I had the option to do that. It was a free will choice that I could have made years ago, and I created so much suffering for myself by refusing to do it. And the ego never wants to hear that forgiveness is a choice.
Oh yeah.
It wants
It's
to
a
think,
stubborn son of a bitch.
yeah, it's off the
Pardon
yeah.
my French.
No. Yeah, sorry, I got a little potty mouth too. I'm sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, according to the ego, forgiveness is off the table. It's not an option. It's not. It's not a way that we deal with things. But the heart knows better. And
Definitely.
when we can use our will, we can exert our holy trinity: thought, emotion, and action. We have to have the will to forgive. We have to care enough to do it, and then we have to forge it or crystallize it through the action of actually offering the deed and actually offering the energy of forgiveness. And it's a way to exercise our holy trinity from within, and it's a way to raise both our masculine and our feminine principles and forces within us.
Beautiful. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. Like, that was beautifully put. So I guess you mentioned moral accountability earlier. I guess, why is moral accountability important, and how do we do it for ourselves and others?
Well, without the true understanding of moral principles, without actually understanding the objective difference between right and wrong, and operating based on those principles in everything that you do, you can very easily forgive yourself into a state of slavery, right? You can, if say I'm in an abusive relationship and someone just tears into me verbally or emotionally or physically every day, and they're beating me up, one way or the other. I can forgive and keep myself in a state of bondage, right? So I can hurt myself. And if I don't understand moral principles, if I don't understand my rights and the rights of others, and what is within my rights to do, and how to exercise the masculine self-defense principle and protect myself and protect the innocent. Like, I have to know what's within my rights to do to rectify the situation, whatever's happening. Of course, I have, the right to physically defend myself. I have the right to, remove myself from a toxic situation. And I have, this also came back to, it goes back to what forgiveness is not, and that's staying in a situation that's toxic or harmful for you.
100%. Because you can't forget about the harm that was done to you. Like, you can forgive for yourself, to be able to move on from that and love them despite their hatred, whatever, but you can't forget that. You can't just like delete it from existence. Like, it happened.
Right.
So you have to still acknowledge that it happened, but you can forgive what they did to you.
Yeah. And we had better not forget either. Even if we could forget it, it would be very detrimental for us to forget it.
Oh, yeah.
We forgive to release the emotional burden. But if we forget it, then we lose the lesson. It can't teach us anymore. The experience can't teach us anymore, and we're probably going to repeat the experience.
100%.
So moral accountability is, just doing what's within your rights to change the situation. And likewise, you could forgive yourself into a state of slavery, like I just explained, but you can also forgive yourself into becoming a dominator of somebody else, right? If I'm doing something harmful to somebody else and I'm just la-di-da-di-da, I'll forgive myself because I'm, if I'm being emotionally abusive or psychologically harming someone or physically harming someone, and I just forgive myself without taking moral accountability and understanding that I'm violating natural law. I'm violating moral principles by carrying out that action, and I don't do everything within my power to rectify that situation. Then I'll forgive myself and become a psychopath, and maintain the status of being whatever, a narcissist or a dominator, whatever you want to call it. So understanding moral principles is so important, and that's how we hold ourselves morally accountable. The instance of the molester. I can forgive a wounded, scarred, traumatized, unwell human being because they're an imperfect human just like I am, but I'll never accept or condone harming a child. Yep. You try to do that in front of me and you'll see what a psychopath is, right? Right,
exactly.
And that's how that's called righteous anger. That's righteous indignation, So it's a good way to help us let go of things that really aren't that important to be upset about, and to feel the anger that we're supposed to feel in the present moment about things that are happening right now.
Right.
And
because you can't just like not be angry when you're angry. Like, you got to feel the emotion that comes up as it comes up in that
absolutely
moment.
Absolutely. And you you work with that anger. That anger is there for a reason. And if you don't experience anger for some of the things that go on, then there's something broken.
Right.
You should be angry about child sex trafficking and endless wars and funding murder through theft, and things like that. Those things should anger you, but having anger is not a problem. But when anger has you, it is a problem. And when it controls you, and instead of you channeling that anger into becoming better and helping do what's within your rights to rectify a situation, then you're just, you can forgive yourself into a worse situation. So I think striking the balance of forgiveness and moral accountability in our lives, and to the extent we're able to in others' lives, is a recipe for true freedom.
That's beautiful, man. I forgot what I was going to say. It all comes down to, man, like it's so simple when you get down to it, and it's like, we make it so complicated, and, like just being angry all the time. Like, we never sit with ourselves and just ask, like, is this really serving me? Like, is this helping me grow? Is this doing any good for others around me? Like, just sitting with these emotions and asking, what can I do to change this? where is this coming from? How can I heal it? You know, just like,
Yeah.
just having these inner dialogues going on, you know, like it's so important.
Yeah. It's of the utmost importance. You know, we create a free society by creating free individuals.
Right.
And when we're a slave to our ego, we're going to be a slave to somebody else's ego collectively.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, this is what I was going to say earlier. So like, yeah, like within the new age community and, you know, I guess the truth community and stuff, well, just the spiritual community, not necessarily the truth community. It's all the truth, but you know, just like this thought, like everything's just love and light, and it's like there's no darkness, you know.
Right.
And like I'm all for that, but it's like you can't forget that there is darkness, you know. Like
No.
you can't just be ignorant of it and like, oh, like it's all love and light here, don't talk about this or don't talk about that. It's like, no, that's not serving to anybody. Like
it's tragic, yeah, when you hear that so much, you know. And I, for a brief time, say, you know, right in the beginning of this transformation 7 or 8 years ago, I did fall victim to, I wouldn't say I didn't fall all the way in that cul-de-sac, but I got, you know, a little new agey for a little while. And like any other religion, new age has a lot of valid truths within it, such as the universe is mental in nature and there is one consciousness and we are connected through it, and all these things, all these pieces of information, and that basically, you know, thoughts create our reality and things like that. But yeah, man, I do a lot of these workshops at I teach a lot of my workshops at consciousness and music and art festivals and things like that, and you see a lot of that, and I don't hold anything back in my workshops. You know, when we're talking about moral principles and things like that, and when I talk about, you know, ideologies that erode freedom, and I, you know, I give it to them straight, and I call the new age for what it is. It's a religion. It's a mind prison religion.
Right.
You need to use your spiritual discernment and take the truths from it and integrate it into your own understanding, but don't ever fall into the egotism and forget what your heart knows, because there's two ways to empower darkness. One is to buy it and participate in it and give it your energy, and the other is to ignore it.
Yep.
You have to be in the world and not of it. You have to see the darkness and look closely at it and understand it. You know, if you're going to defend yourself against a weapon, no matter what kind of weapon it is, physical, mental, psychological, emotional, whatever, you have to understand that weapon and how it works. That's the best way to defend yourself. So you must look closely at the darkness and not be afraid of it. And I think that's, you know, we've heard be in the world but not of it. We have to have our feet on the ground and really look at what's going on and understand that there are shitty things going on, and there's a lot of shitty things going on.
Yep.
And
but that doesn't mean be a shitty person, and that's what it is, you know.
And it doesn't mean accept it.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't. It also doesn't mean, you know, just be a good person and accept the rest for what it is. It means do what is within your rights to change it. And every single revolution or every single aspect of evolution when it comes to human conscious starts with words and speech and at least speaking. You know, speaking is an action. So we have to shine light on what we see and that darkness in the world. And yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that, on the new age. You know, let's just shoot rainbows at everything and it's all good.
100%, man. Like that's literally what my podcast is about. It seems like I say that in every episode, but it's like, you know, just shining light in the darkness, because you can't change something you don't want anymore in the world, or like something that needs healing in the world, without acknowledging its existence, you know. And you can't just look the other way and hope it goes magically just disappears. Like, it's not how it works. Nope. I wish it was that easy, but no. That's not reality. Right.
That'd be great, you know, if we could just, you know, like meditation's great, but we can't just meditate the world out of darkness, you know.
Yep.
We have to engage in action. Absolutely.
100%, man. So I guess the next point we wanted to touch on was the moral and natural law principles. I guess you kind of dove into that a little bit, but
Yeah, I mean, without jumping into the whole, uh, Hermetic philosophy and all and the 7 or 8 natural law principles that we have there.
right.
You know,
I have
passing.
that I have that posted up on my wall, by the way.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah,
So yeah,
that's a great. The Kybalion's a fantastic book. It's really. I read it once or
I love
twice.
it, man.
Yeah,
I need to do that. I read it for the first time like 3 months ago, and it's life changing, man.
it's such a great book, and it gives you so many points. Again, like anything written by a human being is subject to not having the entire truth or not having everything that you could ever need. But when they call it a master key, I think it's about as close as you can get,
Oh yeah,
especially for people that aren't super deep into the occult and esoteric philosophy and the literature.
right.
It's a lot more. It's a lot more simple than even the Corpus Hermeticum, the Divine Pymander, is written in such old language that it's you got to read. It took me a long time to read it, and it's such a small book just because it's written in such really old language.
Right. The
But yeah,
Kabbalion's really digestible for
yeah,
newcomers for sure.
absolutely. So yeah, fantastic book. Yeah, I mean, that natural law and moral principles really comes down to the two. Where I know you had someone on recently talking about mystical Christianity. I don't know if they mentioned like talking about the kingdom. The kingdom of heaven is within all of us, and I'm
Hmm.
paraphrasing, but when the male is like that of the female, and the female is like that of the male, you shall enter the kingdom. And I think they're
Love that.
referring to the sacred union or the alchemical wedding of
Right.
the masculine and feminine forces within us. And while there's a whole slew of characteristics that fall under each of those, and the feminine is a passive and receptive and loving and caring and nurturing and compassionate um, uh, force within us, and the masculine is a protector and guardian and an action taker and exerting the will in the world. um the When you have an imbalance of one, when you have a suppression of one, you have a hyperactivity of the other. When the masculine is unbalanced by the feminine, you become a dominator, and when the feminine is unbalanced by the masculine, you become a slave, or you become a submitter, or you're in bondage.
Hmm.
So it can all be kind of summed up by non-aggression and self-defense. Those are the two principles, or the two pillars of the true spiritual path. And you could read a million, think about how many volumes and absolute such a tremendous amount of manuscripts and things like that have been written on esoteric philosophy and the occult and all
Right.
that. But I think if we can just reach people, I believe so much that humans are capable, we are all capable of doing so much better. And if you can just strike the chord within them to remind them that they know those two principles, they know not to aggress upon anyone and not to let anyone aggress upon them. But
In other words, do no harm, take no shit.
fantastic, yeah, absolutely,
Right. In
absolutely,
simpler terms, I guess, for
yeah. That's the exact terms. Yeah,
right.
non-aggression, self-defense is do no harm and take no shit, and
Right.
don't let your neighbor take any shit either. The
Exactly.
self-defense principle applies to all of the innocent and all of the weak and
Hmm.
anyone who is in need. If everyone could just overstand on those principles that are written on their heart, to not aggress upon anyone and not allow anyone to aggress upon them or their neighbor, and they understood the 7 true natural law transgressions, they understood the things that truly constitute a sin, or the 7 true deadly sins, which are murder, assault, rape, theft, trespass, coercion, and willful deception. Um, when you truly understand those things, and a lot of people understand these principles, but they don't understand the self-defense principle unless somebody's physically beating their ass, right? They're not going to defend themselves against someone usurping their free will and subverting their free will with the threat of violence, like, through taxation or through laws, unjust laws, locking people in cages for having a plant, or but it applies, really to any of those things. If your neighbor's being coerced, you have the natural law right to defend, to stop that coercion or stop that willful deception. So yeah, man, those two principles, self-defense or non-aggression and self-defense, perfectly balanced, and a true understanding of what constitutes a wrongdoing, I think is some of the most important knowledge that anyone can have. And that all ties back into forgiveness too, because we can forgive, we can way more readily forgive things that aren't true transgressions. Oh, this guy called me a name. Yeah. If he did that once and slipped up or whatever, if someone's constantly trying to psychologically torture me and berate me all day long, is a different story. But my loved one lost their temper and said something shitty. Well, I can more readily forgive them for that than if they're committing a serious transgression against me every day. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
So, yeah, understanding those principles and being able to balance those with forgiveness, I think, is just such a potent force for freedom.
It's like that's the pillars right there, man. Like the pillars to it all. Like it's where it all starts and where it all ends. Like I couldn't have said it better myself. So I guess the next point would be, so who owns you and who owns me? Well, you or me. Self-ownership.
Yeah, man. This is another thing that I've been, bringing up in these workshops. Like I'll usually do, if I have a couple workshops to do at a particular event, I'll usually do one on forgiveness and introduce a little bit of moral accountability in there. And then I'll do a whole separate workshop on these things. Like my last one I did a couple weeks ago was just titled Natural Rights, Moral Principles, Self-Ownership, and Freedom. And I just straight to the point. And I ask those questions. I look at someone in the crowd and I say, who owns you? And most of the time, at these places, they'll say, I do. I'm the owner of myself. But
right.
Taking that into daily life, when you have a conversation strike up, so you'll find that some people, there's a lot of, hardcore socialists and even maybe nihilists and things like that, or people that say that ownership of anything doesn't exist. Right. And if when I hear that, I ask people, okay, I say, okay, then I challenge you to relinquish ownership of yourself right now, because that means you have to stay in the position you're in. Your body's going to keep breathing, whether you voluntarily choose to or not, but you pretty much have to not do anything or move or anything for the rest of your life until you die. If you relinquish ownership of yourself, then or if you don't own yourself, then who maintains your body? Who puts food in your body?
Right.
Who chooses to put water and nourishment in your body? Who puts you in the shower and takes care of you? Who engages with the world through your body if it's not you? And that's usually enough to get the point across. But yeah, this whole ownership doesn't exist is another trash ideology, if you ask me.
I agree.
If someone's going to tell me that they are not actually the owner of their body, and it just begs the question, well, then what is this? What, you know what I mean? I can't even wrap my head around that philosophy. But yeah, we already know, I own me, you own you, and nobody else has jurisdiction over that.
Right. Yep. I completely agree with that. And, it's kind of ironic in the last year we just went through with, like all the my body, my choice folks all of a sudden didn't really follow that mantra anymore.
Right.
It's kind of ironic,
Yeah, that really is. I've seen a lot of that too. Yeah.
I feel like, there's been a lot of perversion and like a lot of things turns upside down, and it's just been so blatantly obvious for those who can see. And it's like, you know, I mean, it's common sense stuff. Like, you know, just this whole last year was just baffling to me. Like, just how far the pendulum kept swinging. You know, I mean, it's like they put all their cards on the table, and you know, people were still like thinking that you know they had cards they didn't, when you can clearly see the cards in front of you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. It's the cognitive dissonance is it,
Unreal.
it's heartbreaking, man. It's I'm sure you're the same of the same force of agape. You love all of creation, and at
Right.
least I do. And I
100%.
no matter who you are or what you've done, I'm on your side. Like I
Yep.
want you. If you've done terrible things and are still doing them, I'm still on your side. I want you to heal and not do those things anymore.
And that's a
And
hard lesson to learn, man.
chew, man, it
Because for
is.
so many years, you know, I was like, you know, let's just get rid of the elitist. It's like that'll solve everything. It's like, well, what if I still gotta heal? Like, you know,
Right.
it's like pushing my demons onto them.
Yeah.
You know.
And exactly. And I think that I always say that my battle is not with any person; it's with
Mm-hmm.
ideologies.
Yep.
Right? We're not waging a war of against people. It's ideologies that drive those people. It takes a massive force through consciousness to eradicate that. And you know
It's
whether
like this.
we
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
whether we ever do or not, it matters. Like I want to, and I'm hopeful that we can. If not in my time, in my children's time, but whether there's one other person doing this and teaching this and trying to eradicate these ideologies, or there's 7 billion other people doing it, I'm still going to be doing and saying the same damn thing. It's the task at hand is still the task at hand, and as long as these ideologies exist, um, the task is the same. It's to put truth out there that combats these deceptive ideologies.
100%, man. It just brought up that verse in the Bible. Um, you know, it goes something like, For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against
Yeah.
spiritual wickedness in high places."
Oh, absolutely, man. Yeah, yeah. There's some really powerful allegorical statements and metaphors and just potent truth scattered throughout the Bible for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And no less in the Gnostic Gospels either.
right.
There's that spark. There's that touch of goodness in the heart of even the darkest soul. And
Right.
in the gospel of Thomas, if you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you fail to bring forth what is within you, what you fail to bring forth will destroy you.
I
And
love that.
that's just another way of saying the statue was always inside the stone. And if we
Mm,
can just teach others, remind others that they can wield the chisel and the hammer and chip away the excess stone and bring that statue back to the surface, then that's creating collective freedom through individual freedom, one at a time.
wow, that was beautiful. Um, yeah, I couldn't agree more with that, man. You just have a great way of explaining things. Like, I feel like I I feel all these things you're saying, but I can't I shouldn't say I can't, because I know I can someday.
Yeah,
But um you just explain things so eloquently, and I appreciate that
thank
so
you,
much, man. Like,
thank you. I really appreciate that.
for sure. I mean it wholeheartedly. Um so I guess another thing we wanted to touch on was why voluntarism and anarchism, like why would that be the way? And I guess, has anarchism been like perverse and, you know, meant something than it really is, how we perceived it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think so. It's definitely gotten. I think it's very intentionally gotten a negative connotation associated with it. People have such a knee-jerk emotional reaction to hearing the word anarchy or anarchism, and
Like
it's
the
a
movie The Purge or something, you know?
yeah. I was just seeing an
It's like,
advertisement for the Purge 3 or something like that, and like
right.
who knows if they were meaning to do that or what, but that shit is programming,
Oh,
man.
yeah, 100%.
Like acting like if we remove the laws for a day, that everyone's going to go out and do some crazy shit.
Right.
It's just insane, man. I've never seen any of the Purge movies, but I have. You know what they're about just based off of one of the trailers.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
The
yeah,
the
that's
first time that movie came out, I was like, yeah, what are they pushing here? Like the original one, and then
right.
like just seeing the George Floyd protest this year, like that literally felt like it was
Yeah,
straight out of that movie,
right, yeah.
with the curfews and oh man, it was chaos.
And the people getting hit with gas in their front yards and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it was tragic, man. Yeah, that anarchy has been completely perverted, and I insert depending on my audience and in certain communities, and I'm trying to gauge who I'm talking to, I'll interchange the words voluntarism with anarchism or anarchy. Sometimes I'll just use voluntarism, and then after we have a great long discussion with somebody, then I'll remind them that voluntarism is just another word for anarchy, and because there's not many people that will disagree with you that they don't have the right to threaten and rob their neighbor, um, or like lock them in a cage for ingesting something, and no matter what it is, a piece of candy or
right,
heroin or whatever it is, they don't have the right to carry out violence against another person for doing something with their body, or they don't have the right to threaten them with the credible threat of violence and tell them to surrender a portion of their income or the fruits of their labor. And that is the claim of an ownership. That is a claim of ownership over another person's body or mind. And not many people disagree with that. And when someone asks, there's an elevator. If you have an elevator pitch for anarchy, it's really just I don't believe that anyone has the authority to rule over another. I believe that all human interactions should be voluntary, and no one has the right to force an interaction on another person. And 98% of people would probably agree with that
100%.
at its face, on its face, and then you say like, but that is a principle. That is a principle, and it must be applied to everything. It must be applied to everywhere if we're truly going to say I'm a voluntarist. And
Right.
then they start to get the cognitive dissonance in. Well, we got to have government for this or that, and it's like
Right.
being unique and having different attributes, and we should all celebrate our individuality and the uniqueness that we have and our own personal gifts. And there's a infinite number of things that we don't have to be on the same page about, but
Right.
there's really only two things that we have to be on the same page about, and that's non-aggression and self-defense. Those are the principles that are going to set us free. So
Completely.
yeah, I mean that's why voluntary. I don't have to know. I don't have to have all the answers for every problem. I don't have nearly all the answers or solutions for every one of our problems. For even a small handful of our problems, I probably don't have perfect solutions for. A lot of people have really good and thoughtful solutions, but I do know what the answers are not, and the answers are not violence.
Right.
Anything that is any form of violence or aggression against someone, that's what the answer is not. So if we start there,
Right.
we'll be blown away at the solutions that a free people can actually come up with together. And so that's where I say we start. We start by ending all forms of aggression, and then see where the chips fall.
Right.
And then at that point, when nobody's being aggressed upon and nobody's being held in a state of duress, then we can truly unleash our creative power, and we'll be traveling the fucking galaxy within a couple years. You know what I
Right.
mean? Our potential is limitless, But first, we must be out of a fear-based mindset. And when we're in a constant state of duress and under threat of something, then we're so limited and contracted in our consciousness that, you know, we're spelling doom for ourselves.
Oh yeah, it's like fear's like a parasite to the mind. You know, it keeps us trapped and limited, and you know,
Right.
we can't live to our true potential if we're trapped in fear. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
it's like
It's
we give ourselves away in that.
voluntarily give it away
Yeah,
when
yeah,
we we don't make the choice to dig deep enough to undo that conditioning and release ourselves from that fear. Then we're voluntarily giving our power away, you know, our creative power,
right.
to fear. It just contracts the consciousness. You know, it's the opposite of evolution. You know, it's the involutionary or contractile force of consciousness. And when we're in a love based, a true love, true agape based heart space and mind space, then we're pushing true evolution. We have the ability to truly evolve and do it far beyond what we can even imagine right now.
I couldn't agree more, man. It's like the last year, you know, the fear was on a whole nother level, and I feel like we've been on an uptick. You know, I'd say 9/11 was really the when it really hit a high note, and it's like been a slow creep since. And you know, you can go back through the years, major events, but the last year, man, like the fear was on a level I have never seen in my lifetime. I mean, to the point where, you know, family members are afraid to hug other family members, and,
Yeah.
you know, family members are afraid to have people over in fear that they will kill them. It's like,
Right.
it's like, what are we talking about here? You know, like, how lost are we? Like, are we that lost that we've like forgotten, like, these people are humans? Like, we're all just trying to live, like, you know,
Yeah.
because so many are so plugged into this media, you know, that's exists only through this box we have in the corner of our rooms, you know. It's like without that, like, would it exist? I don't know, you know.
Yeah. That's so true, man. It's so hard to say, man. There's so much skewed numbers and off numbers and misinformation and disinformation. It's been so challenging to sift through what's true and what's untrue.
Right.
And man, I we live so, you know, out in the middle of nowhere, but I can tell you that we in our in my little family unit, you know, I've got my daughter 50% of the time. I've got my stepdaughter Jade, who is my partner Amberly's daughter, and I
Mm-hmm.
have Amberly that we live on this property together. And nothing really changed for us. There was a few occasions that I put on a mask, really because I had to, you know, because I wanted to see my grandmother, who was in who's in a nursing home
Right.
nearby, and but for so long we couldn't even go in and see her with a mask on or not. We had to stand outside the window of her room, and she had to
It's heartbreaking, man.
get on the phone with us and talk to us on the phone, and as we looked at her through the window, you know, and spoke with her on the cell phone, and she lost probably 15, 20 pounds over the past year, and it's she was so extremely healthy before all this, and just had a she's just taken such a turn for the worse just from the isolation, man. It's been
Right.
crazy.
I couldn't agree more.
It's
Like
been wild.
the isolation in itself, I feel like, you know, um a good friend of mine, her son, you know, he's only 14, and um he had a buddy that committed suicide in the last year.
Yeah.
And I could not believe it, man. Like 14 years old, you know?
Right. Unbelievable.
I mean, this isolation, the effect it's taking on people's mental states, like, I, you know, there's so much that was done, like on a mental, just on a mental, um, psychological realm. Like, I mean, the damage, it goes so deep, man. Like, you know, forcing kids to wear masks to school, and you know, if their parents refuse to let their kids wear masks, and then they bully the kids that aren't wearing masks. I mean,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
so much that happened on a
it was
psychological level in the last year.
absolutely tragic watching my daughter, put on her mask as she jumped out of my car from school, and not being able to see her teacher smile, or not being able to see her classmates smile. You
Right.
know, they had to wear the mask outside at recess. They had to. I mean, they didn't even get mask breaks in class, and I was just irate about it. And we're working towards a homeschooling effort. I have
Congratulations.
my firstborn son coming next month. He's coming actually in about 4 weeks.
Well,
Um,
double congratulations.
yeah, thanks so much. And we're we got a full plan to homeschool him, and
Amazing.
we've got it set up. We're going to do a home birth. We're really excited about it.
Beautiful.
It's just going to be myself and my partner and the creator there, and it's going to
Amazing.
be just beautiful, magnificent. We're really excited about it, and
It's powerful.
we're this whole this whole pandemic has just been wild, man. The people that put themselves in isolation, it's hard for me to remember and to keep that in my awareness, just because we didn't isolate. You know what I mean? We
Right.
didn't. If somebody said, I don't want to be around you or anyone because I'm scared, I didn't go force myself into their home or in their lives or anything, but we pretty much carried on.
Right.
We didn't do
Same. Yeah.
isolate. We still had, we had big gatherings, 50, 60 people. Um, so I know, maybe three people, and I have at least a whole lot of acquaintances, and I got plenty of friends and a lot of acquaintances. And
Right.
I know a real small portion of people who ever got sick. And none of them really, ever after hanging out at one of our gatherings, it was just, I don't know, man. It was crazy, and I had to keep in mind, the people that were so fearful and who really did isolate themselves. People didn't leave their houses for weeks, and
Yeah.
I can't even, like, it's hard for me to even register that. And this whole
I can't.
pandemic
Yeah.
was going on at a point in my life when I was facing 75 years in prison. And I don't that wasn't that never really scared me. You know what I mean?
Right.
I know that, like, that I've been aligning with natural law, and that I'm, the universe has my back. And that's, my mind would get scared sometimes, but I was never truly afraid in my heart. And to know that, like, so many people were so much more scared than I was during that time,
It's crazy.
it's yeah, man, it's been hard for me to keep that in mind and maintain my empathy and remember that so many people were suffering at that level, just because my world didn't change a whole lot. And that's
I, I
I'm
like
not
I like to tell myself with these people, like, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. You know,
right.
like, I gotta love them where they're at, and I can plant seeds where I can and hope they grow, and um, you know, still love them anyways. And but at the same
Absolutely.
time, I'm not gonna give myself away in the process, and
Right, right.
um, still acknowledge my truth. And yeah, man, I can't imagine what some of those people are going through, and then what you went through on top of all the other craziness that happened last year. Like, if you want to dive into that, man, if you don't, I understand. But if you want to tell that story, I'd love to hear it. I'm sure the listeners uh, would enjoy it as well. It's completely up to you.
Yeah, sure, man. Yeah, I don't have any problems talking about that. It's so when I left when I left pediatrics back in 2015, I
Hmm.
went in on a joint business venture with uh, a friend of my brother-in-law and a couple other investors, including my father and a couple of a good friend of mine's aunt and uncle, and a few other people we met through some friends. We went in on a business venture and started a cannabis farm in
Right.
Oregon, and uh, and that doesn't really have much to do with this. But I mean, I think it does. There's still a lot of unknowns and like where this federal warrant came from and like where this case was built against me and stuff. But
Right.
Long story short, like I had, well, not too short, but I had like in October 21st, 2019, I had a package coming in the mail to me of hemp distillate or CBD distillate, which is, you know, legal on a federal level.
Wow.
And you know, I at the time, you know, I used cannabis and I used other
Right.
forms of plant medicine as a part of my spiritual practices.
Right.
And I got this package delivered, and you know, shortly after the package was delivered, I see my dog starts going wild, and I see a police car outside in my driveway. You know, so that day, you know, my house got raided. There was about, you know, 9 unmarked Dodge Durangos came up in the place, and you know, guns drawn down on me, and I got taken to jail, and I got charged with, you know, 5 felony counts, 2 F2s, which is, you know, Dearborn County. If you can Google search something like this county locks up more nonviolent offenders than Raleigh, Durham, and San Francisco combined.
Jeez.
And it's Dearborn County, Indiana. The Washington Post and the New York Times both printed an article about my county in Indiana.
Wow.
About how many people they locked up for nonviolent crimes. But they charged me, you know, an F1 is like first degree murder. You know, it doesn't get any higher than that. I got charged with 2 F2s, and I got charged with 3 F5s, and they were enhanced with possession of firearms and stuff, which, you know, the firearms were, you know, in a closet in storage away from anything else they found.
Right.
And you know, of course, the newspapers made it sound like I had just massive amounts of drugs and money laying out on a table with guns and all that shit, and it just wasn't the case.
Right.
And you know, they found a small bag of a powdered substance, which, you know, a CBD isolate is just a white powder. If you've ever seen it before, you can buy that anywhere. And because there's a big methamphetamine problem in our county, they charged me with meth, and you know, so they painted me as a meth dealer, and just all this shit.
God,
I've never even seen methamphetamine before, and like,
right.
So anyway, you know, they put my ransom really high. My surety bond was $750,000, and my cash bond was $100,000. We were able to get my surety bond dropped to $500,000, which you pay 10% of. So that was $50,000 there, and my cash bond was $100,000. So my ransom that we had to pay was $150,000. And
holy shit.
So needless to say, I sat in jail for a while. I was in the county jail for 4 months, from October 19th to February 18th, and then I came out released on bond, pretrial supervision. So I had a GPS monitor on my ankle for 14 months when I hadn't been convicted of any crime. I was just charged at this point. So for 14 months, I had this big, bulky GPS monitor on my ankle. You know, I couldn't leave the state without permission, all sorts of stuff. Just, you know, I couldn't go swimming in the water with my 8-year-old daughter. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm facing 75 years. So pretty much, I don't know if I'll ever be able to enjoy swimming in the lake with my daughter ever again, or jumping in the pool with her, you know? So it was, it was a lot to go through. And the hardest part of jail was seeing my daughter suffer, you know, missing her for the first time ever, missing her Christmas, Halloween, Thanksgiving, her birthday, my birthday, New Year's Eve, all the things that I've never missed with her before. And seeing how hard it was on her, but she was so strong and brave through the process. Really, she kept me sane and grounded. And while I was in there, I taught plenty of workshops, and I did a lot of good. I feel like, you know, we had a lot of workshops and talked a lot about forgiveness, and you know, I had certified gangbangers, you know, crying and telling each other they loved each other and hugging each other, and just, you know, doing the great work in there. Really, I had a lot of support on the outside. I had people, you know, keeping money on my phones, and we were able to text in there. They were really expensive, but I had people keeping me in contact with my daughter and my partner Amberly and my family and stuff. So um, there was a lot of support, and it was definitely an interesting experience. I learned a lot. And then April 6th of this year, after a lot of money for a really good couple of attorneys, I ended up getting a great deal, and I got I mean, I don't know, you can call it a great deal, but my my medical career is pretty much over for even the possibility of going back and practicing something like integrative medicine or anything in the future is going to be very difficult, but still possible.
Right.
I don't know if I'll go that direction, but still having your livelihood destroyed by for a nonviolent offense and like never harming anybody.
It's unbelievable, man.
Yeah. So yeah, I ended up getting one felony. They charged me with dealing 10 pounds or more of marijuana, which I only had 84 grams in the house, 3 ounces. And
Right.
I've got 5.5 years of felony probation. So
Yeah, that's not even a felony where I'm from, and it's illegal where I'm at.
really,
Under an ounce is under a pound is not a felony if you're not dealing.
wow.
It's just a simple possession. It's a nonviolent crime, $300 fine for under an ounce. It's all in one package.
Man,
Or for under a pound. I'm sorry. They raised it from an ounce to a pound.
Yeah, well, and so I ended up accepting the deal where they charged me with an F5, or they convicted me of an F5, and that's dealing 10 pounds or more. But that's so that I didn't have to go on public record claiming ownership of other things they may have found in the house, other forms of plant medicine that I just didn't belong to me, but I didn't want to go on record talking about those or accepting ownership of those things. So I figured no jail or prison time was better than any of the alternatives. So I was happy to take the deal at that time.
100%, man. I don't blame you one bit. I've been fortunate, I've never done time, but I've had many friends. I got a friend that's, he's doing a 2-year sentence right now for lighting a napkin on fire at the Floyd protests. And he was with me earlier that night, and he was really drunk and went down there and, made a dumb decision, and now he's paying for it. And he was 2 weeks from getting off probation, like doing really well for himself.
Man,
and
yeah.
It was heartbreaking, man. Just to see what happens to like people that are intentionally not doing harm to others and are put in a cage, and they throw away the key. It's like this is so inhumane. It's like I can't even put it into words, man. Like, and just even with the legalization happening everywhere, like there's still people sitting in prisons for these same crimes that are now legal.
Right. Yeah, man. When people talk to me about weed's legal and this and that, and this comes from someone who spent a lot of time in Oregon, Colorado. For 3 years, I spent 1 to 2 weeks a month in Oregon, and I was working that farm and everything. And so I've seen all that. But yeah, don't talk to me about legalization until every political prisoner is free.
Exactly.
And I'm half inclined to say reparations paid to them too for having their lives destroyed and families scattered to the wind, fatherless children, motherless children. I met so many damn good people in that jail. They're all, so the majority of them were really good people and just misguided and had such good hearts, and they had just had their lives absolutely destroyed. Now, yeah, they weren't doing any favors to their lives in a lot of cases. The majority of people I was in there with were using meth. And that's not going to really contribute a bunch of good to your life. And I wouldn't advise anyone to use meth. But the state doing what they did, it made things infinitely worse for them and infinitely harder for them. And they just don't give a shit about the children and the families, man. And it's just tragic.
I mean, you just see you see the uptick of, the family unit being divided just in the last, 60, 70 years.
Oh yeah.
And the war on drugs played a huge role in that. And, it was like decade after decade, it just got worse and worse. And, it's like now we're just starting to legalize in the last 10 years. And you know, it's nonsensical, man. Like these people are sick, they're they're self-diagnosing for a trauma that's deep inside them to not feel this hurt, so
Yeah.
they self-medicate with whatever drug you name,
Yeah.
and what do they get in return when they get caught doing this? They get thrown in a cage and treated like animals.
Yeah.
It's like, it's so nonsensical, man. I've never been able to wrap my mind around it, even when I was a kid. Like, I never understood how you can make a plant illegal. Like,
Right.
how can you fight a war with nature? Like, you're never going to win that war. Like, it's a paradox in itself.
If nature is illegal, you are not living in a free society. And
Definitely not.
people, so many people will talk about how they're free. And I mean, you're either free, you're either absolutely free to exercise your rights unrestrained, or you're enslaved. And if
Right.
you can't do anything you want without harming another person, or without, seriously putting someone else at risk, you're enslaved. Without the fear of violence carried out against you. And people, still think that they're free. And it's, they don't have any concept of all, this massive, I think close to the biggest, the largest incarcerated population in the history of mankind, I believe. I'm not 100% on that, but it's definitely the largest in the world, currently, and probably ever, just massive. And so many of them are victimless crimes or non-violent offenders. And it's just tragic.
It's insane, man. It brings up this Terrence McKenna quote for me. It goes something like, if the words life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness don't include the right to experiment with your own consciousness, then the Declaration of Independence isn't worth the hemp it was written on.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. That's a damn fact. It's just not worth the damn hemp it was written on. And that's the truth. And that's another big problem with people thinking their rights are derived from government. People,
Right.
It's such a problem. People somehow think that their rights come from a piece of paper that men wrote on, and it's crazy. People need to wake up to that fact too.
Right. Completely. And, we were touching on natural law tonight a lot. And I took a few notes here from a recent podcast I listened to on natural law. There's a quote: when rights are like muscles, if you don't exercise, know, and use them, you're going to lose them.
Yeah.
Which I found, that's totally on point, and such a good metaphor.
Which podcast was that? I'm always looking for more natural law podcasts and teachers to listen to.
That was Master Mind Body Spirit. Let me find the episode. It was a recent episode on Master Mind Body Spirit with Matt Belair.
Okay.
He's a great guy. He used to be a monk, and he's just been getting into natural law. And Mark Passio's work, been having a lot of people on. He had Alfonso, I forget his last name, but that guy's been on Crow 777. Crow 777 and Master Mind Body Spirit are two podcasts I listen to pretty regularly that do a lot of work on natural law. And that's where I really started to get into it, because I got into conspiracies and stuff back in like 2012, and that's when I really started opening my mind to there's more going on in the world than I thought. And I was stuck in a lot of fear. And I remember watching this video of a guy named Santos Bonacci, who I'm actually having on next month. I'm having on Matt Belair as well, the guy I mentioned just a second ago. Yeah, he's coming on in a couple weeks. So shout out to both those guys. But I seen a video of Santos Bonacci outside of the courthouse in Australia, and he was talking about how our birth certificates are essentially a bond on the stock market owned by the Vatican. And, I was like, well, what do we do now? Like, so we're basically wage slaves and that's it. Like, I didn't have any solutions at that time. And for years, I saw all the problems in the world, but I didn't have any solutions. And like, once I got into natural law, probably within the last few years, like it really started to all connect. And it's like, oh, okay, this is where the change needs to happen. Like, this is where we can empower ourselves and empower others. And like, this is when like real change can happen, is when people stand up for themselves and stand in their sovereignty, and just live by these principles you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because, there's so much allegory and, word spelling like going on here, like the whole maritime admiralty law stuff, and like, the birth canal, like, and currency and banks, like the river banks, like it's all like has to do with water. And that guy mentioned anagram, or excuse me, a acronym for law. So he calls law land, air, and water, because like we're stuck on water, and he's saying we need to get on land. We need to plant our feet on land.
Sure.
Because we've been lost at sea.
I've heard a lot of guys break this stuff down. It's rabbit hole, man. It's crazy.
Dude, it's fascinating.
Yeah, I'd be happy to come on again with you and some, talk more about some of those things in the future. I've looked into, renouncing citizenship. I've looked into authenticating my birth certificate and forming an injunction and reclaiming my sovereign name and all these different things. And I've also found some real interesting things recently on establishing sovereignty, basically making a contract with God through the establishment of what's called a 508c1a irrevocable trust. And that's a pretty cool. And I've been researching that a lot. I'm doing a lot with it, actually. I've actually got my trust established, and Amazing. I've got my bank account open in that trust. And in fact, when I contract for work now, I just got a new job recently as an author for questions for medical students and doctors that are preparing to take their board exams. So I just write questions. Thanks a lot. So I just, I write questions for them to practice for their board exams. And as a 1099 contractor, the company was more than happy to contract with my trust. Mm-hmm. So any type of commerce that I conduct is on behalf of the trust, and it's not on behalf of my strawman person. So basically, I've taken a quote unquote spiritual vow of poverty, and I don't take personal income. All income that I generate is on behalf of the trust as a trustee, and it's tax exempt. Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty cool. It's a pretty cool method, and there's a lot of stuff. It's rabbit hole. There's a whole lot of information about it, but I think, using trust as a tool to protect your assets is an important thing to do.
That's of the utmost importance, man. I feel like there's so much to learn under this lens, and until you're fully learned in this, like I wouldn't go too far for anyone out there, because like you can slip up pretty easy and get the book thrown at you really quickly. So be careful, to get all your I's dotted and your T's crossed before you go about it too strongly, because, just take some time to study it and learn it before you apply it, because There's a lot to learn. Let me tell you that.
I'll definitely second that. I don't have nearly the level of understanding that I need yet to be comfortable with doing
Right.
a whole lot more of what what these trusts are capable of. I'm just doing the bare minimum right now, and
Right.
just
That's where it all starts, man, is just being aware of it.
right.
For
Yeah,
sure.
I would definitely second that. I've been looking into this for years and definitely didn't have the guts to do anything about it or do anything with it because yeah, one slip up,
Right.
you can really mess yourself up, especially when it comes to like reclaiming your straw man and like authenticating your birth certificate and stuff.
100%. So I guess just a few things I wanted to touch on towards the end here. I guess um, so you were a master mason at one point in time. I guess what led you into Freemasonry, and what did you take from it, and why did you leave?
Um, so yeah, I joined the Freemasons as an entered apprentice, which is the first degree back in 2014, and I think by August 2015, I was raised to a master mason. Your first degree is an entered apprentice, then you've got the fellow craft second degree, and then your third degree is a master mason,
Right.
and that's within the Blue Lodge, like modern lodge masonry. And if you want to go into Scottish Rite or York Rite or Shriners or anything like that beyond, you have to first become a master mason in the Blue Lodge.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what got me into that was, wanting to basically before before I unlocked and remembered so much of this um, understanding and knowledge about natural law and how best to help the world, how best to help the emergency that the world is facing. Um, I wanted to rub elbows with people who I could talk with and, you know, potentially open their minds up and open their hearts up in the right direction. People that might have some sort of social status or power. Um, you know, back when this all kind of started,
Right.
I didn't really have a good grasp on where I fell spiritually and where I was at. It was just in the beginning stages of me coming to understand this, and then the other half was me, you know, wanting to participate in philanthropy and the brotherhood and like learn more about the esoteric teachings,
Right.
and you know, in my time in the Freemasons, again, it's like the lodge modern lodge system is like going to church on Sundays. It's like the
Right.
esoteric stuff. You don't.
Right.
I've learned so much more about masonry outside of the lodge than I ever did
Yeah.
inside the lodge. With these rites and rituals that are the initiation.
Yeah.
I,
I
I
started reading Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma.
yep, that's a good book.
I'm on like the seventh or eighth degree. That is a heavy book, man.
Yeah, definitely heavy. I've never read the whole thing, but I've listened
Right.
to half the audio book or so.
Okay.
Um,
But yeah,
and
go on. Sorry to interrupt.
no, that's okay. And so within my time in Freemasonry, I never rubbed elbows with any super powerful elite people or anything like that. It was I met my lodge was smaller. It was Tyrion Lodge 333 in Springfield, and it I met some great people. I made some I developed some strong brotherhood there, and people that had my back and that were really charitable people and really embraced. Most of them were Christians. They really embraced true Christianity, um, but also a lot of statists and also a lot of authority worshipers there too.
Right.
So I got kind of disillusioned with that for a while. After I was raised to a master mason, it wasn't long after that I moved back home after leaving pediatrics residency. So I haven't even entered or stepped foot in a lodge since 2015. Um,
Wow.
but I did maintain my membership just in case I wanted to petition my local lodge here and
Right.
become a member there. But as I said, I got so much more from studying Freemasonry outside the lodge, and just like the times I've been in the Catholic Church, whether it was from like, my past marriage, she was a Catholic and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that it was just crumbs for the peasants, and that there are nasty things going on inside the Vatican.
Right.
And I don't have any physical proof or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure at the highest ranks of Freemasonry, obviously, that there are some things going on that don't align with me. So I didn't have much interest in continuing that. We're all Masons if we choose to be the architect of our lives.
I completely agree.
And so all that being said, and I wasn't really participating in modern lodge masonry anymore, but I did get a letter after my sentencing in April, and I don't know how they got it or what. I don't know if they're doing like regular weekly, monthly background checks, or if one of my brethren told the Grand Lodge of Illinois or what. But within a couple weeks or a month of my sentencing, I got a notice of expulsion from the Masons. So they kicked me out.
Wow.
Which was just another affirmation that I didn't need it, and that they don't align with natural law if they're going to kick someone out for
a plant.
for allegedly participating in voluntary transactions with people for a plant. Then fuck them.
Right. I completely agree, man. And I'm friends with some Masons, and I changed my perspective on that over the years because, I thought all Masons were evil for a long time. And then I started reading their books, and I'm like, there's a lot to learn here. Like, I understand what draws them in and draws people to the lodge. My perspective, I was curious about it for years, and I just never liked joining groups, and I didn't like, because I feel like once you join a group, then you kind of lose your individuality in that, and it can be a trap. So that's what kept me from ever joining. But like, I've met some very honorable people that I hold in very high regard that are still in the lodge, and I, because I've come to learn, and it took me a while to get there, but like diving more into the occult and esoteric, like, I really honor Manly P. Hall, who was a 33rd degree, and like, it's like I can't just write him off because he was a Mason. Like, that's ridiculous. Like,
you can't do that. Yeah, you can't do that.
It's like he had so much great work to bring to the world. Like, whether you were in the lodge or not, like, you just got to read the information,
Yeah, Manly P. Hall is absolutely next level. I mean, one of my all-time favorite teachers.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure, man. I met so many great people in the symbology, and I do believe that going through those initiation rites, in the symbology held therein, really did catalyze my spiritual sovereignty and my understanding. Helped me on a subconscious level, and I think that I knew that my heart is too strong to succumb to any dark forces or to participate in anything that I found immoral, even at the beginning of this remembering journey. So that never scared me. I always knew that if something ain't right, I'm gone. You know what I mean? And they can't scare me with any. That you got to repeat these things about if you ever leave the lodge or tell the secrets of the Master Mason, that you'll have your tongue ripped out and buried in the sand.
Right.
Tides come and go and shit like that. But that doesn't ever scare me. There's no, darkness flees in my presence.
I completely agree, man. Thank God you empowered yourself, and like, I always had heard, like, if you simply like post up Freemasonic stickers on the back of your vehicle, like, you're less likely to get pulled over and all this stuff. And it's like, I don't know, but
I think that's true, just because the fraternal orders of police are so deeply entrenched in Freemasonry, and
I tend to believe it too. Yeah, I just always heard that.
Yeah, so many of them are Freemasons. You might get pulled over, but they might give you a secret handshake and
you speak the language. Yeah.
I never had any stickers or license plates, but yeah, that's there's a lot of FOP members in the lodges for sure.
No doubt. Well, this has been an amazing conversation, brother.
Yeah.
I guess you know, maybe one last question. Okay.
Yes.
You know, being an MD and everything, and you know, I really dove deep this last year into you know, just germ theory versus exosome theory. I wanted to get your thoughts on this and what you think about it.
Man, yeah, and so that's like volumes of podcasting is in and of itself.
Right.
Tremendous. It's a tremendous amount of stuff to unpack, and I have been so heavily indoctrinated in germ theory that
Right.
it's the only thing that makes sense to me, but
Right.
I haven't dove super deep in terrain theory. I have listened to plenty of experts and doctors and researchers talk about terrain theory,
Right.
and it just I think just from I see it like this. There's this huge debate of nature versus nurture, right? What produces the adult, what the adult version of us, and how we turn out in the characteristics and states of health or states of disease that we develop. Mm-hmm. Is it more nature versus nurture, or is it nurture? And I think that terrain theory and germ theory, excuse me, I don't think either one of them is mutually exclusive.
Right.
I think that it's both. Mm-hmm. I think that terrain theory, the terrain plays an enormous role in health and wellness, or in disease, depending on what sort of environment you're in, and your internal environment is obviously going to contribute to disease. But I've just looked at too many bacteria under microscopes from the spit or the nose or the abscess on someone's leg to completely dismiss germ theory. Right. So that's tough, and I can't say that I've got a hard or rigid opinion on that. I know
that that's totally understandable. I think the truth is always somewhere in the middle, and it's like we're always tricked into picking a side.
Right. So I think it's definitely a combination of both. I mean, I think I've seen seriously virulent, nasty bacteria absolutely kill people and rot their skin, and have their skin pretty much slough off their bodies until they're dead.
Right.
And I think that has to do with the germ that was isolated from those wounds, and I think it also has to do with the terrain that those wounds or that germ was exposed to, or that entered their body through. Health and wellness comes first and foremost from putting the proper foods and nutrition in your body and taking care of your body and keeping it strong. And I think that's where allopathic medicine goes wrong, and it doesn't focus nearly enough on prevention and actually increasing wellness rather than just treating symptoms and disease. I think that the main focus of every doctor on the planet should be nutrition, should be in your body, and should be what is going on your body, and what's going, everything from flame retardants in your couch to dryer sheets and laundry detergents and things. All of these things need to be considered and taken into account, and should be the main focus. And then when disease arises, nutrition and all those things should be every bit as integral as any pharmacotherapy or drug therapy that we use. I learned so much good from my time studying medicine and going through all the materialist indoctrination and learning. It was such a tremendous amount of work to become a medical doctor. And there's a whole lot of valid information and practice there, but it has also been very perverted and taken over by corporate interests. And there's a whole lot of stuff that completely violated my oath. A big reason that one of the driving forces, there were several for when I left medicine, but one was all these observational reports of people like, I was in pediatrics, so there were children that I knew personally and through friends and family and through other contacts. For instance, Crohn's disease, which is a inflammatory bowel disease, and it's devastating disease, especially the more severe cases. You know, we were sending children to surgeons to have their bowels cut out, remove parts of their colon and their small intestines and be on a colostomy for the rest of their life. When I knew of cases in people who were using cannabis oil and putting it in complete remission.
Wow.
But because the government and other interests had our hands tied, I had to violate my oath. I had to send children to get their healthy, or not healthy, but to get their organs cut out when we have a natural medicine that can stop it dead in its tracks. And that may not be the case for everybody, but it is the case for some, and it should be tried because the side effect profile and the harm that it does is so minimal and pretty much pretty much negligible and nothing at all, that it should be tried. And I was in total violation of my oath for the few cases where I did, have to consult a surgeon when I couldn't just, give a kid some plant medicine,
100%.
So, so I think there's a lot of harm that's been done by the way healthcare has been taken over, but there's also a lot of good. If I get in a car accident or if I get shot, I don't want you to take me to the chiropractor.
Exactly.
If I have a heart attack, I don't want to go to the acupuncturist.
Right.
Or the I want to go to the emergency room.
Right.
So there's a lot of good done, but there's so much that can be changed and corrected.
100%. And yeah, I think there's got to be some middle ground and some meeting in the middle between the two sides that, we find some sort of balance out of the two, because I think, both can go to the extremes, and like be very centrist in just their thinking and like, this is the only way that's right, like no matter which way you look at it. And I think you just kind of pigeonhole yourself doing that. And
right. It's just like sifting through religions to find truth.
Exactly.
You have to sift through the religion of medicine, and the dogma of medicine. Another thing about germ theory is that I've seen too many antibiotics work, and I know how they work, and they're specific to certain germs, and I've seen them save lives so many times.
Right.
So again, I don't discount anything about terrain theory. I think it's a lot of merit to it, but I don't think it's all terrain theory or all germ theory. I think it's
right. I like that. That was a perfect answer. And so I guess just touching on the real hard push for the vaccines right now and like how they rushed them out. I guess, what were your thoughts on that? Do you think they were rushed out too soon? Do you think these are different than past ones? And would you recommend it?
No, I don't recommend it. I don't recommend this current vaccine. I won't take it. I won't give it to my children. My partner won't take it. Vaccines have been one of the hardest things for me to digest and process since walking away from medicine, to the extent that I did. I've always had some involvement ever since then, but not nearly in the formal academic setting like I had been. It's definitely not like other vaccines. Other vaccines. My daughter and my stepdaughter are both fully vaccinated. They were born back before when I was really pretty much completely for all vaccinations. My stance on that has changed quite a bit. If for no other reason than the fact that it's 2021, and if we want to produce a vaccine without aluminum in it, by God, we can produce a vaccine without aluminum in it. So why the fuck are we not? People talk about it's an adjuvant in there, and it helps elicit a better immune response. Well, if you need soft metals in your vaccine to elicit a better immune response, your vaccine isn't worth a shit. You know what I mean? You put some more bacterial proteins in there. Like that, I'm not scared. If you break a piece of a cell wall off of a bacteria and you put it in saline and inject it in me, I'm not scared of that at all. I would do that every day for the rest of my life. because I have an immune system,
Right.
and it probably already has antibodies against those bacteria. That's not
Right.
scary. A saline injection with a little piece of a protein in it is not something that I'm concerned about. I don't think that harms anybody, but I
Right.
think it's formaldehyde and aluminum and
It's added
thimerosal
ingredients.
and other things that don't need to be injected into a child. You know, if you really dive into how much aluminum is injected, it's going to blow your mind. You know,
Right.
and especially with these diseases that are on the rise that we know are correlated with aluminum, such as Alzheimer's disease
Right.
and neurodegenerative diseases, and we're seeing epidemic level proportions of autoimmune diseases, asthma, and things like that. So I don't know. We could go on for hours about that. We could do a whole podcast on
Right.
that. But the
Yeah, I just
current
wanted short answers on those last two. I just wanted to touch on those, just with your
right,
expertise. So,
the current vaccine is not like others in that it's injecting a code. It's injecting the genetic code, which is uptaken into the cells and is transcribed into turning your cells into a spike protein production factory. And and those spike proteins and the immune complexes formed with them when your antibodies attack them and cluster up are that's a big cause of the vasculitis or the inflammation of the small blood vessels within the lungs that really cause the respiratory distress that people experience. So until there's 10 years of serious, hardcore, robust, long-term safety and efficacy data, I wouldn't even consider it. It's still
I'm in
experimental.
the same boat, brother. So it's good to hear it from an MD. So
Yeah.
glad I can see eye to eye with you on that. Well, I just want to thank you so much for coming on, brother. And oh my goodness, like so much wisdom in this show, and I can't wait to release this one to the listeners. I know they're gonna love it. I guess, yeah, if you could just tell the listeners where they could find you, and or anything you want to plug, share that you got upcoming in your life or big events.
So I've got my Facebook. I'm always cool with people hitting me up on the personal profile. It's Shadical, so it rhymes with radical, and it's replacing the C in Chad with an S. So SHADICAL, and then hour, like the hour of the day, and grave. Shadical Hour Grave on Facebook, and I've got a page that I operate called Be Forgiveness. That's one word, and you can